The Israeli Defense Forces are still poised for a ground invasion into Gaza this afternoon, nearly 20 days after Hamas terrorists invaded the country and slaughtered thousands of Israeli civilians and other civilians from other nations. Israel announced that overnight, as part of its defense of the nation, it conducted a targeted raid in northern Gaza, then withdrew the tanks that were involved and are still waiting on Israel's war cabinet for further instruction before a full-blown invasion. Israel now says 224 people are believed to be held hostage in the tunnels underneath Gaza, as families with captured loved ones spoke on Capitol Hill earlier this afternoon. I want to bring in former Prime Minister of Israel, Ehud Barak, who served with the IDF for 35 years, including as its chief of staff from 1991 to 1995. Welcome, Prime Minister. We've seen several of these targeted raids, and they're described as, quote, softening the battlefield in order to make it ready so that there will be that opportunity for Israel to go in and, as it has said, get rid of Hamas. However, we don't want to really understand, we want to understand what those targeted raids mean, how many more, and when we can expect to see a bigger move.
Look, the objective was set clearly by the political echelon to eliminate the military capabilities of Hamas and to put an end to its rule over the Gaza Strip. This cannot be completed fully by airstrikes. So there is an almost inevitable, I don't like to use the word inevitable, but almost, let's say, inevitable ground force invasion, either through deploying tens of thousands pairs of boots on the ground in one long kind of battle, or to have several smaller ones, but repeating itself in many corners of the place, always looking for targets, namely every installation, every rocket launcher, every munition depot, every training site, every communication center, every office. And the people who participated in this barbaric attack on our citizens, and we are determined to execute it. We have a compelling imperative to do it. No country on earth would allow such a Daesh-like, ISIS-like kind of murderous force deployed few hundred yards from its border.
Of course. No country would allow this or stand for it. Of the 4 hostages who have been released, they've given some intelligence to the IDF of what the tunnels were like and the system. In an invasion, what does that mean for the hostages who are still there? How do you extract them safely while they are guarded by Hamas?
It's one of the probably the uppermost priority during any operation to, and even before the operation and during the whole war, to rescue these hostages. It's too sensitive to discuss it. There are more than one way to think of it. None of them are bulletproof and sure to be successful. So it's, in a way, it's irresponsible to dive into the details. But you have to bear in mind that the whole operation, in order to achieve the objective, suffer from 4 different constraints. One is the hostages, the other is the risk of spreading to the north, to the Lebanese-Hezbollah border. The third one is the kind of the problem of the international law. We are committed to the international law, but we are fully aware that our universal support will erode quite quickly with the accumulating numbers of civilians who will be hit in Gaza Strip. And the last one, very important one, is assume that we operate it. We make it a heavy version, and 3 months or 6 months from now, we fully cleaned the strip from any physical assets or capacity to rule of Hamas. To whom do we pass the torch? To whom we will give Gaza? We are not going to stay there for the next 20 years. All of these elements are intricated, intertwined and complicated based on data facts and real-time development. Only a war cabinet can decide how to run it, and the Supreme Command of the Defense Forces.
And Prime Minister Netanyahu is waiting to hear from that war cabinet. Let's bring it here to the United States. It is extremely disturbing to many Americans who follow the values of this country, one of which is not to cheer on terrorist groups that invade countries and murder people, that so many students, college students around the nation, have been supporting and cheering on, but more importantly, professors. There was one at Columbia, and yesterday, Leon Cooperman, the billionaire investor who has donated $50 million to Columbia, was on the show. Here's what he said, and then I want your response because you were educated at Stanford Business School. So listen first.
I think these kids at the colleges have for brains. We have one reliable ally in the Middle East, that's Israel. We only have one democracy in the Middle East, that's Israel, okay? And we have one economy tolerant of different people, you know, gays, lesbians, etc., and that's Israel. So they have no idea what these young kids are doing, and that's one of the reasons I wrote my book. Now, the real shame is I've given to Columbia probably about $50 million over many years, and I'm going to suspend my giving. I'll give my giving to other organizations.
Ehud, you have been aligned with Stanford for many years. Are you still, after a lecturer there had separated Jewish kids, Jewish students in one of the classes, put them in the corner and called them colonists?
Look, I think Mr. Cooperman is right. I was at the School of Engineering at Stanford some 45 years ago. It's not a short time. But I added my signature to a protest of probably 1,000 or 2,000 of Israelis and Jews and some Gentiles who protest against this behavior. It's a kind of a mood in the academic world to ignore, to start to think very shallowly about issues and to easily forget the atrocities and draw immediately a kind of moral equivalent between the sacrifice of this slaughtering of innocent civilians and our response to get rid of a Daesh-like organization and at our doorstep. It's we cannot apologize for the students. I really wonder about the professors. I think that certain thinking about humanity, about what's right, what's wrong, and a slightly less fixations on colonialism and whatever, some kind of dogma. We should be much more open-minded and sensitive to realities.
All right. Well, it's interesting. I can't wait to hear what Stanford says or thinks, but they haven't been that vocal. Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us. We'd love to have you back soon to hear as this very, very upsetting story develops. Thank you.